Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. And we continue the discussion on cybersecurity and take it forward a bit with UTT's Professor Yufei Wu. It is time to go in depth on cybersecurity, digital currencies, and 5G networks. Welcome, Professor Wu. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me.
And no, we've already had a conversation, like I intimated, on cybersecurity, but we spoke a little more about cyber awareness. As it stands, what are some of the biggest current threats to you to cybersecurity?
To me, I think first is government. Government now, right, doing a digital transformation, right. So cybercrime, cyber attack will be number one issues. Right? Second is critical infrastructure protection. There are about 16 critical infrastructures needs special care. And the technology used to safeguard in cyberspace will be different from technology we used in traditional IT security. Right? So this is third one is for general population, especially elderly and youth. We need to educate, promote cybersecurity. Because you see right now lots of fake news, right? Ideological stuff, online. You see, could brainwash our youth, our kids.
No, you said there's a difference in technology for cybersecurity versus traditional. Take me through some of those differences, please.
Okay, last week I made a speech to Caribbean energy sector cybersecurity sponsored by USAID. And we exclusively basically focus on technology which is called OT, operational technology. Like industrial, control process, right? Or SCADA, communication system used in critical infrastructure like Warsaw, right? Like TNTech, BP, Petrol Train, right? TTT, those kind of technology, right? Usually we don't really consider for traditional cybersecurities, and those actually more important, right? more consequential. So this is a thing where government and general population should aware of that. So critical infrastructure, like last 2 months ago, there is a small error, right? Maybe a fallen tree, right, on the grade line, right? Black out of the country for about 12 hours, right? So you see, critical infrastructure is very vulnerable. We're at the very beginning of a fourth industrial revolutions, right? So people talking about smart factories, intelligent like manufacturing, automations, right? Like autonomous vehicles, right? All those things, right? Using something called operational technologies.
And I like the fact that you were able to speak about public utilities and operational technology, but it also begs the question, national versus individual safety. And I asked that question because we recently are seeing that Costa Rica would have literally declared a state of emergency because they have been under cyber attack. So does personal cybersecurity look a little different from the national scale, Professor Wu?
Yeah. So basically, you're right. Talking about personal level, right, corporate level, right? and critical infrastructure level. But of course, critical infrastructure level, cybersecurity more consequential. Right? But personal level, usually people talk a lot about your phone get hacked, right? You get locked, right? So or email get hacked. So people really feel the pain, right? But for critical infrastructures, right? So this actually much more devastating. So Costa Rica, like even recently, like massive, cyber hack, have not reached that kind of level. Just one company get hacked.
But what are some of those things that we may overlook and say, okay, well, we don't need to think about that as yet? Because you also mentioned Massey. I think sometimes we may say, well, nobody's going to do that here in Trinidad and Tobago. What are some of those things that we may overlook? And if we said, okay, well, yes, it's possible here, we might move or we might behave a little differently.
Yeah. The fourth industrial revolution, right? The number one issue is the cyber attack, cyber crime. Right? So we need to protect, right, from individuals to national like infrastructure levels. Yeah? So I think people should be aware of that, and invest, right, energy or time to safeguard their personal devices. People now, for me, right, I do my 50% of jobs online. See, right? Even though and people bring their cell phones, right, laptops, right, and simply join the corporate networks. You see, right? So if your personal devices are not safeguarded, you see, and your device could pose, right, a threat to your corporate networks, So everybody interrelated, everything interrelated. Yeah.
And integrated with each other. Is it a matter of saying, okay, well, you're bringing your personal device or your cell phone and you're going to be doing the work of a corporate entity? Is it that the responsibility is for the corporate entity to say, okay, well, these are some of the things that should be installed on your phone, even like if you're making VPNs or other networks that allow your personal device to be a part of the corporate system. Whose responsibility is it, or is it something that is shared? Or even if it's shared, what kind of levels or ratios we're talking about to say, okay, well, I'm making sure that there's this level of safety attached to this personal device because it is being integrated to the public system.
Yeah, we have to safeguard, right, the company or personal, right, devices and networks, right, through different layers, right. Policy, right. The policy, company policy should be there. You must implement a certain controls in your devices, like as you said, a VPN, right? I think most important is what is individual, right, should be educated, right? So let's say not click, right, some email from middle of nowhere, right? So end of the day, right, human being is a weakest link in the system, right? So education, awareness, right, is the most important thing. No matter how good your system is, how strong your technical control is, how perfect your legal or corporate policy, right? But most important thing is that individual, right, behavior, right?
No, you got me a little nervous there, Professor Wu, when you're saying that the humans are the weakest link in the system. But talking about that education or that investment in education, how do you suggest we go about doing that? Because there are many people, they talk about, I'm not sure about this cell phone thing, and they're just trying to keep up to date. So as opposed to possibly reading through the entire terms of the contract, saying, okay, well, this is what the person has access to when I click on this. They just want to get to the end. So they click next, agree. And like you said, there's so much more work that is happening digitally, is happening remotely, is happening online. What are some of those ways that you suggest that people learn the technology so that they can mitigate some of those risks of being hacked while still being able to function digitally?
This is actually a very big question, all right? I think we should educate people from kindergarten, and so UTT provide education program. UTT is going to come up with a tailored training program for corporate employee, right? And UTT is planning to go out reach high school, primary school, even kindergarten level, right? Elderly, pensioners, right? To educate them, what to do, what not to do, when they receive this email, right? And be vigilant especially for young kids, right? Watch some propaganda stuff, right? Online like narratives, right? About certain things.
With those narratives, I want us to take a short break and we come back because I want to talk about the role of one formalized education, but also having some of these short courses to take people through as cohorts. So we do that we're speaking with Professor Yufei Wu, an expert in the field of cybersecurity, hacking digital currencies, 5G networks. Stay with us. We'll return with more. Welcome back. We are speaking with Professor Yufei Wu, and we are getting all the knowledge, well, as time permits, about things that we should be aware of as it relates to cybersecurity, hacking, and just being safer as we travel the digital internet, the digital divide. But Professor Wu, it seems as though one of the things that people are looking at a little more in terms of how it is we operate digitally are digital currencies. So build us from the ground up, please. What are digital currencies?
Yeah, we have two types of digital currency. Right now, we're doing research right now, right? UTT probably the first university in the English-speaking Caribbean, maybe whole Caribbean, doing research in digital currency. Right? So we have a digital currency, right? Is like a Bitcoin, right? Like also the Luna just collapsed, right? A few days ago, almost 100%, right? So those digital currencies basically based on nonsense, right? So that's my personal opinion, right? I have to say, is basically is a Ponzi scheme, right? I just quote Warren Buffett, the U.S. billionaire, right? Recently said, right? He said, right? Quote, right? All of the bitcoins in the world, he won't buy for $25. That's what Warren Buffett said, right? Because he said, right, it does not produce anything, right? And his partner, Munger, said, Warren Buffett partner, in my lifetime, right, I try and avoid the things that are stupid, evil, and make me look bad in comparison to someone else. Bitcoin does all three. So last week, Bitcoin, Luna, and Terra UST collapsed. Basically, tells you these things based on what? Based on nonsense, right? And it is what? It's based on algorithm, not like solid, like gold, like before, right? In the U.S., like 1944, right? Bretton Woods scheme, right? U.S. dollar pegged to gold, right? In 1970s, right? Because they're printing too much U.S. dollar, right? So that's wrong in gold, right? Then U.S. Basically, they pegged U.S. dollar to the gold, right? That is 1970,
But looking at that algorithm, Professor Wu, is it a matter of saying, okay, well, it may be an algorithm, you likened it to a Ponzi scheme, but with a Ponzi scheme, though, is it a matter of getting in quickly and getting out, as opposed, because those at the top of the pyramid normally fare a little better than those at the bottom, or is it a matter of just forgetting about it altogether and doing something or investing in something that has a lot more long-term viability?
There's no long-term viability. It is extremely volatile. See? So basically, it's based on this philosophy, right? So you expect the next person, right, to pay more you paid to purchase, the Bitcoin, see, or cryptocurrency, So if there's nobody come to purchase high price, the scheme will collapse. That is a Ponzi scheme, right, or pyramid scheme. So basically, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency based on algorithm, right, just for speculation purpose. That's why some country banned bitcoins, right? Like cryptocurrency, like India, like China, right? But there's another bitcoin, right? Or maybe called digital currency. That is central bank-backed digital currency. That is a digital currency we are doing research right now, right? It's going to be become mainstream. Few weeks ago, right, U.S. president signed executive orders, right, and basically, mandate, right, Federal Reserve to do research and to rule out of digital currency. That is central bank-backed digital currency. So it's different from the cryptocurrency we just mentioned.
And I like the fact that you're talking about research. How important, because on the first half of the conversation, you spoke a little bit about the need for education as we move forward. How important, in your view, is being able to be financially aware, to have this sort of education inculcated as people are growing up, so that it's not as though this is something that I'm afraid of, I don't want to really have to deal with too much, so I need someone to explain it to me every time, every venture that I'm making. So you're secure enough within yourself that you're able to move forward and traverse and organize and deal with some of these things for yourself.
Trinidad and Tobago should have ambition, right? Trinidad and Tobago should become a regional business hub, right? Technology hub, right? So the Trinidad and Tobago should develop its research, right? Let's say a rule probably in the future become develop a standard for the region, right? for the CARICOM, for the Caribbean region, right? Trinidad and Tobago has resources, right? Natural resources, has money, right? And also has manpower, right? Has a good infrastructure, has government support, has private investors, right? Trinidad and Tobago must become regional, headquarters or base, for multinational companies. That's why we need to develop a research in some key area, relevant area, right, to advance this country, to create the jobs, right, to retain high-paying jobs, instead of every time go out to Canada, U.S., ask for external help, pay them big money, right? We need to do things inside Trinidad and Tobago and provide service to CARICOM member countries, make money from them too, right? So that's why we need to do research. As I said, like fintech, fintech is a big thing, right? Trinidad has an international financial center, right? And they're promoting fintech, So this thing will become big, and they have a business incubation hub, right? Try to spawn out some companies.
With that in mind, what are some of those key areas you think we need to be focusing on? And by the same token, is that the same as asking what are some of those key areas that the University of Trinidad and Tobago is focusing on with regard to researching and fintech and looking at some of these issues?
Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago, because we're based on our research, right? Nobody in Caribbean are doing research in fintech, right? Like Jack University, they don't have, UA does not have university technology in Jamaica, they don't do this, So fintech is definitely a good area, to UTT stand out, right, and make a big contribution to the country and to the region. Right? Cybersecurity also, right? Cybersecurity, we need to develop some kind of not really standards, right? Kind of rule, for the whole CARICOM. So for the whole CARICOM, my opinion is like this: we need to create a market, right, and maintain the market, protect the market. So CARICOM must have some policy, standards, from itself, grew up from itself, right? Otherwise everybody can come to CARICOM, right, to make money and just simply leave, no consequences if something bad, right?
And one of the things I find interesting with that is that the European Union would have come to CARICOM, specifically the Eastern Caribbean states, and looked at the way that they were organizing their money, and to say, okay, well, is this a template that we can take information from and adopt to actually create the EU? But at the same time, where have we gone with some of that information? What are we doing with some of that information? But in the last 30 seconds, we have Professor Wu. I want to thank you very much. And is there anything that you would just like to put out there in terms of a closing statement?
Oh, well, yeah. And another thing I would like, thank you. I like mention is the 5G, see, right? The 5G, in my opinion, 5G is the most important technology in the upcoming fourth industrial revolution, right? Not the second most, is the most important, see. And I really wish Trinidad, could, deploy 5G as fast as possible, become regional leaders, for fourth industrial revolution.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Wu. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.